time when mighty sailing ships were cutting through the sea, they did encounter devil ships made from haunted trees. Spirits trapped inside the planks were longing to be free. Trapped in planks on devil ships made from haunted trees. The red-haired woman passenger could free them with a spell. Spirits trapped inside the planks to return to hell. Her baby squawked and gurgled to translate what they said, but older ears cannot hear a message from the dead.
The haunted planks spoke through the ship, the flapping sail, the groaning mast, the rigging in the wind. The rigging in the wind, reminding each and every sailor of their faulty life, their checkered past, and their sins and strife. One night on the third watch, the watchman he did see the red-haired passenger at the rail, speaking to the sea. As the watchman struck the third bell, he could not believe his eyes. A sea beast raised its massive head to look the passenger in the eye. She spoke slowly to the sea beast. From beneath her wrap, she produced her naked baby as the sails began to flap. The weather changed so quickly, it was raising to a gale. The baby's screams were lost to the wind and the flapping of the sails. The sea beast tilted back its head, displaying rows of teeth. The red head dropped the screaming child into the waiting mouth beneath. When the sun rose on a new day, the crew struggled to the deck. The watchman swung from the yard arm, hanging by his neck. It was I that lived to tell the tale. I had passed out on some sacks. I was not seen by the passenger as she covered up her tracks.
In a time when mighty sailing ships were cutting through the sea, they did encounter devil ships made from haunted trees. Spirits trapped inside the planks were longing to be free. Trapped in planks on devil ships made from haunted trees.
On the efficacy of seaborne bottles in solicitation of rescue, a discussion. Listeners often ask me to review my substantial experience and well-grounded opinions related to the efficacy of messages in bottles as a means of alerting relevant authorities, next of kin, etc., to the status of a victim of shipwreck, piracy, or other mishap who yet lives as a castaway, marooned in some remote location, unable to leave with available resources and desirous of rescue, transportation, or other aid. Hardly a day goes by during which I am not importuned by some perfect stranger desirous of my thoughts on this topic, and indeed, I can scarcely venture forth to take the air with Hodge, my feline companion, without I am startled by the lurching progress of some unknown personage flailing his way from one stationary object to the next like that careening orb forever struggling against its imprisonment in a pinball machine. I say, limbs aflutter with excitement and worry, desirous of my knowledge on this subject. Which, did I mention, is considerable? Nonpareil, in fact. Yes, nonpareil. That would be no exaggeration. I like that. But let us proceed. First, the entire question is likely to be moot, not for want of motive, but rather of means. Imagine, if you will, the canonical desert island of the bourgeois imagination, the magnet for castaways, a black hole of one-way travel. As much of a cliché as it may be, as much of an oversimplification, it nonetheless retains illustrative value adequate to our present purpose. To summarize, the desert island has a surfeit of sand and palm or coconut trees. It may include exotic animals, annoying, noisy birds, kleptomaniacal primates, exempla gratia, and geographical features, a threatening volcano. It does not include a great number of wine bottles, intact and full of that restorative pressed from the trampled grape, empty, or perhaps cast from a small airplane, sloshing and half full of urine, or half empty if you would so have it. Nor does it harbor a liquor store, a bottle factory, a village of glass-blowing artisans, or a recycling collection center. There are excellent reasons for this, and entire fields of inquiry and commerce involved in exploring the implications, but for our purposes we may surely just agree to accept these observations as facts. Do we assume too much in choosing our desert island setting with its softly curved, warm, voluptuous sandy beaches? Au contraire. If we do not find inventories of bottles ready to hand on such an island, which might almost be said to be designed as a device for sieving bottles from the sea, how much less likely are we to find them on a cold, stony shore against which all drifting artifacts shall be smashed, or an islet surrounded by grinding ice, concealing all floating debris and all too likely to flip the intrepid beachcomber into the frigid and all surrounding water, or to yield beneath his feet like a trapdoor concealing not a tiger, not a floor decorated with punji stakes, but a bottomless pit of briny slush. Recall that to send a message, the castaway must also have a cap or cork for the bottle, a piece of paper or other substrate which can be deformed in order to pass through the neck of the bottle, and which can be restored to a readable configuration following retrieval, and a writing implement. Procurement of each of these is subject to the same or similar difficulties. In order to furnish possible rescuers with any useful information, our castaway must also have a functioning GPS or a sextant, chronometer, and considerable skill. But let us amuse ourselves by supposing that all these difficulties are solved. You will be pleasantly surprised to know that the subject of messages in bottles has been thoroughly investigated, in part because they provide us with an indirect means of studying ocean currents. Most importantly, few bottles are ever retrieved. Those which are retrieved may be found months, years, or decades after they are cast adrift. Two such messages are known to have been adrift for more than a century before retrieval. And this in spite of the fact that many forms of floating marine life are quick to recognize even the slick, vitreous surface of a wine bottle as real estate in need of colonization, and to grab hold and grow, such that, on average, a bottle bobbing heedlessly on the surface acquires enough weight to drag it underwater where it will not be seen in about 9 months. Older bottles have presumably survived multiple cycles of sinking to greater depths while not imploding, sloughing off their acquired living coats of opportunistic sea life and floating back to the surface. Thus, reliable communication using messages in bottles is a statistical affair, critically dependent on broadcasting a large number of outgoing messages. In this, it reminds one of the panspermia hypothesis. The numbers required only multiply the difficulty of acquiring the bottles and other necessary system components. Remember, too, that our castaway must assemble all these messages and commit them to the waves during the abundant spare time he no doubt has, in between sleeping, trying to catch fish with his hands, sneaking up on dozing birds, waiting for another handful of brackish drinking water to accumulate in a muddy hole, and so on. Then he must survive long enough on this regimen for a successful rescue to be organized and undertaken. This is why, when approached on this subject, I endeavor first to establish whether my questioner has some personal connection with the topic, and if so, second, whether their acquaintance, unlike a cruise ship tourist or container ship engine room mechanic, commands a broad repertoire of survival skills. Finally, are they likely to have made landfall with a waterproof, solar-powered satellite phone? If not, then really the best thing I can do is to offer my sincere condolences on their loss. Good day, sir.
What can be said of priests at sea? Except, perhaps, that it be wisest not to speak of them at all. For though one hears many tales, albeit ancient ones in truth, of the value of visions, prayers, and benedictions by religious men toward sailors and their vessels, yet on board the ship herself a priest as passenger is deemed near universally ill-loved. Many a captain forbids his crew to even mention clergymen of any stripe, even though none be aboard, and to meet a priest on shore while fixing to set sail is reckoned to spoil a fisherman's catch by day, or worse, if the voyage be longer. Now, one might think that luck would run the other way, since saintly miracles and the goodly beseeching of one deity or another abound in sailors' lore. Yet those are but weak arguments against that manifest association twixt priests and death on the one hand, death and foul weather on the other. Coincidence or cause, it matters little, for priests and storms at sea go hand in hand by reputation. The ancients sang of mighty priests who, like magicians, summoned whether foul or fair, though in the West such incantations were presumed confined to pillared temples on firm ground. Yet in more recent times the clergy were suspected of a lesser role, in that their chief effect was to attract attention from the devil himself toward any vessel unfortunate enough to have one of his enemies aboard. And do not think this represents some mere conceit of Western minds alone. The fishermen of Japan, too, hold not only that meeting a priest on the way to one's boat is an ill omen, but that a far worse fate will follow should such a gentleman chance to drown at sea. And if a priest be slain by drowning at another's hand, cast into the ocean by angry commoners, a theme surprisingly common in folkish tales retold, that deed will spawn a further reckoning, as the ghost of that unfortunate priest may linger and become, in time, an umibozu, a sea monk. Now, as with many tales of sea demons and monsters, only the barest descriptions of the sea monk have been heard. Details are few and inconsistent, presumably because so few encounters leave a living soul behind. It is said that the sea monk appears to lone vessels on calm seas at night, when all is quiet. Rising from the water without warning, the umibozu brings with it a raging, violent tempest, within which a vaguely human form, at least according to most tellings, its head round and smooth, its skin as black as tar, so monstrous in proportion that, even though only ever seen from the shoulders up, it towers high above the tallest mast. Looming, the thing then moves to break the ship apart, which, given its size, takes but a single blow for any with the largest boat. Yet tales are also whispered of some few who have survived the dire encounter, claiming that, before destroying them, the sea monk demands a barrel from the vessel's crew. Should they comply, it uses this to haul up vast quantities of sea water, which it then hurls upon the deck to sink the vessel swiftly. The only hope, it seems, is to offer up a barrel with no bottom. The legendary sailor Tokuso is famous for this ruse, and the umibozu will dip into the sea without avail, and in its puzzlement not notice as its prey escapes. Others say the sea monk becomes enraged if the fact it has been seen is mentioned among those on board. But, as with priests at sea, if nothing at all is spoken of the umibozu, it may pass on, and those unlucky enough to have encountered it may yet be spared. Yes, that is what some say, though I myself have never seen the thing, and hope I never shall.
fast, hold fast. One hand for the ship and one hand for yourself. Lest you fall to deck or sea. Lest you fall to deck or sea. Hold fast. One hand for the ship and one hand for yourself. Lest you fall to deck or sea. Lest you fall to deck or sea. Hold fast. One hand for the ship and one hand for yourself. Lest you fall to deck or sea. Lest you fall to deck or sea.
The island fish, under the name of the kraken, became celebrated in northern annals and is the Leviathan of Milton. Norwegian fishermen, without the least contradiction in their accounts, say that when they sail several miles out to sea, particularly during the hottest days of the year, the sea suddenly seems to become shallow under the boats. And if they drop the lead, instead of finding 80 or 100 fathoms depth, it often happens that they only find 30. It is a sea serpent, which thus interposes itself between the depths and the waves. Accustomed to this phenomenon, the fishermen cast their nets, assured that there will be in those parts an abundance of fish, especially of cod and ling, and draw them in richly loaded. But if the depth of the water continues to decrease, and if this movable and accidental shoal rises higher, the fishermen have no time to lose. It is the serpent awakening and moving, rising up to respire the air and extend its huge folds in the sea. The fishermen ply their oars lustily, and when at a safe distance, they see, in fact, the monster, which covers 1.5 miles of ocean with the upper half of its body. From the floating mass issue numerous spikes or shining horns, which rear themselves like masts covered by their yards. These are the arms of the kraken. A kraken is said to have stranded in the Gulf of Nuangan, Norway in 1680, and the odor of its decaying carcass tainted the air for miles around. Many government officers visited it and deposed as to its presence. The
Thursday
sea
night,
length
north winds
washed
15
away
to
to
25
remain.
knots. Seas 8
In
to 11 feet.
1834, Captain
Friday,
Neal of the
north
ship
winds 10 to
Robertson
20
of Greenock
knots, diminishing
saw
to
and
5
took
to
a
15
sketch of a
knots.
great monster which appeared like a
11 to 10
vessel on
feet.
her beam ends.
Friday night,
On approaching
north
nearer,
winds
its
5 to
head and
15 knots.
snout were plainly seen,
Seas 7
its
to
eye
9
looking
feet.
like a large hole.
Saturday,
Its
north
head above
northwest
water was
winds
some
5
12
to 10
feet in
knots,
length,
becoming
its
variable.
width some 25
Seas
feet.
6 to 8 feet.
The snout was 50
Saturday
feet
night,
long.
west to northwest winds less than 10
Woods,
knots.
as the Kraken, is an
6 to
acknowledged
7 feet.
fact.
Sunday, west to northwest winds 5 to 15 knots. Seas 5 to 7 feet. Sunday night, north to northwest winds 10 to 15 knots, becoming north 10 to 20 knots. Seas 5 to 6 feet.
Below the thunders of the upper deep, far, far beneath in the abysmal sea, his ancient, dreamless, uninvaded sleep, the Kraken sleepeth. Faintest sunlights flee about his shadowy sides. Above him swell huge sponges of millennial growth and height. And far away into the sickly light, from many a wondrous grot and secret cell, unnumbered and enormous polypi winnow with giant arms the slumbering green. There hath he lain for ages, and will lie battening upon huge sea worms in his sleep, until the latter fire shall heat the deep. Then once, by man and angels to be seen, in roaring he shall rise, and on the surface die.
The marine forecast for the outer waters from Santa Cruz Island to San Clemente Island. Small craft advisory in effect through late Thursday night. Today, northwest winds 15 to 25 knots with local gusts to 30 knots. Strongest northwest of San Nicolas Island. Combined seas 6 to 8 feet, dominant period 10 seconds. Tonight, northwest winds.
The Sea
15
of
to
Death
25
appears
knots
in
with
all the
gusts to
Aryan
30
folklore in forms and
knots.
legends
Seas
too
7 to
numerous
10
to
feet,
mention here.
dominant periods 8 seconds.
As Miss
With
Harrison
Friday, 6
aptly
to 8
puts it,
feet, dominant
we
period
remember
9
that for
seconds.
centuries the
Midnight.
sea voyage has been the symbol of the troublesome waves of this world and the transit to the next.
Strongest northwest of San Nicolas
On
Island.
Greek tombs, the words euploia,
Seas 5 to
favorable
7 feet,
voyage,
dominant period
show the
9
popular
seconds.
ideas on the subject.
Thursday night,
For this,
northwest winds
modern
15
Greeks
to 25
substitute a
knots.
pair of oars laid on the grave.
3 feet. Northwest swell 4 to
The first
9
great sea
seconds.
epics are now supposed to be accounts of the soul voyage.
15 knots. Wind waves.
Ulysses' ship, in which he journeys from Circe's island to Hades, was a true death ship.
Friday night, north
These legends, as men became more and more acquainted with navigation, were transferred to the west, as the earthly paradise was so transferred.
10 seconds.
So the sea became in later times the river of death.
15 knots.
That it was early so regarded we may believe, for from a Sanskrit root are the two words mir, sea, and mors, death, derived. Here the sea is again mixed up with the myths of death. The old German tribes generally believed in a ferryman of souls. The Rhine became the German Styx in one of these stories, a fisherman being called upon one calm night to ferry monks across, his boat each time mysteriously wafted back by a gale. According to a legend of 1585, the devil engaged all the children in Holland to go on a crusade and got them on board ship, but they never came back. There is a Spanish legend of a certain Count Arnaldos who saw at sea a galley slowly drawing near the land, and in it an old sailor who sang a wondrous, sweet song. When asked to stop and sing the song, he replies, "I can tell the song to no one save to him who sails with me."
Just off the coast, you could swim, it's so close. Swim, lost your land legs for good. Lost your land legs for good. Lost your land legs for good. Just off the coast, you could swim, it's so close. Just off the coast, you could swim, it's so close. Swim, lost your land legs for good. Lost your land legs for good. Lost your land legs for good. CHARYBDIS. Jonah, 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 Jonah. Oh. Bang. Shot. Fong. Fong. Fong.
In Russian mythology, mermaids usually do not have fishtails, but interfinger membranes. Basically, mermaids are drowned girls who committed suicide due to unhappy love.
Come. Fire. On the sailing ships, we're skimming on the sea, encountering the devil ships made from haunted trees. The spirits trapped inside the planks were longing to break out. Only the woman could free them with a shout. Her suckling babies squawked and screamed to translate what they said, but only their ears cannot hear messages from the dead. Messages